Hello, everyone, as they're all getting settled. You know, my adventure portfolio, and by the way, I'm Jennifer Broome. My adventure portfolio includes things like pulling 9.3 Gs with the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, being a member of the first ever all-female trek on the Salcantay Trail to Machu Picchu, and I am unabashedly not the coolest one in the room right now with this amazing panel. So I want to start out, first of all, we're talking adventure travel, but I got to find out, what is the hardest trip that you've gone on? It can be physically or emotionally. Mine physically was Everest Base Camp, trekking there. So physically or emotionally that you've been on. Deanne, we're starting with you.
Oh, yeah.
We're going straight to the Pulitzer Prize winner.
Is this on? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. You know, I think back to one. It was probably about 5 years ago, and I had this assignment to drive across the country in an electric car. And it was just to see that it could be done. And so, you know, about halfway across the country, we're somewhere in the middle of the country. I think we were in Illinois. And someone I was traveling with, because what we were doing is we were reaching out to kind of climate heroes, people that were doing good things along the way across the country. And he came up with the big idea that we need to climb to the top of a wind turbine.
Oh,
Yeah, and
that's not fun.
He says, "What do you think? Are you game?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, all right. You know, how do we get up there?" And they say, "Okay, well, there's a ladder. The ladder's inside. Okay." And I say, "Okay, I can do this." You know, so I put on the safety harness, and I got to tell you, that was grueling getting to the top, carrying all my camera gear, and yeah, I thought I was going to die, but I made it. It was also tough getting down.
Yeah, because it's like a mountain. You know, you're not down until you're back in the parking lot.
Exactly, yeah. So I'd say that was probably a tough one.
How long did it take to get up?
Let's see. I used to know the number of stairs that I went up. Well, not stairs, but like rungs on the ladder. It took a while, and there were a couple of little platforms along the way, so you could take a breather. I would say it probably took about half an hour.
Yeah. Wow. All right, Mr. Adventure. You've been to like some of the most remote locales in the world.
It's a great question, you know, and it's a funny one because it always changes, right? Like people often ask, like, "Oh, what's your favorite photo you've ever taken?" And I'm always like, "Well, it's like the last one I took because it's the one that's like still on the tip of your tongue. It's the most memorable. You feel like you still smell it and feel it and taste it a little bit." And so, for me, usually the hardest job is like the last job, you know, the last one because of what it required and what it took. And so, actually, currently on this project right now, where we've been shooting 7 p.m. to 3:30 a.m. every night with multiple lights and like a 60-person crew and generators all in the middle of the forest in Oregon. And so I came from set last night shooting. It's pouring rain. We've got like over 100K worth of lighting, like just like power. Like we could overpower the sun. And
meteorologist in me is having a panic attack you.
It's so overwhelming. There's cables everywhere, and you're going through like an old growth forest on a trail, and you know, you're just like the management of humans, the management of gear. It is overwhelming, and I'm so grateful I am just the photographer here and not the person directing this, because I've been in that seat too, and that's painful. And so, yeah, that trip was, I mean, I still have mud all over my pants. I'm like, oh, well, bummer. There's just mud all over my shoes and pants because I literally came from the forest and was like washing off my shoes at the AM, PM on the way to the airport. So I don't know. I also love that like some of that is just still resonant on the body, you know, and in the mind. And I'm thinking about tonight when I get back to set, what am I going to shoot? How am I going to change my settings? The shoots that for me, like they stick with you and they haunt you a little bit after. Those are the significant ones because you're thinking about how could I do it better? How could I have changed it? What did I do wrong? And that's like a tough one. I mean, for a perfectionist maybe, but that's always the challenging one.
All right, Jackie, I'm curious to know if yours is solo travel or is your hardest one or most emotional one leading a group?
Okay. I love what you said about the most recent, because, we have decades of this experience, and like, we used to be young and in that place once, and, the years make it all pass. But there is one in particular that wasn't a short one. It took about 4 years for me to complete this whole adventure. But once upon a time, I exited a rather important relationship in my life and went solo, like nomadic. And I left my house, I left my everything, and put everything in storage, and took off nomadically. And I didn't have a plan. I mean, I went straight to Patagonia, which was the first time I ever went there, and it completely shifted my entire direction. From that point on, the last 10 years, I keep going back there. But that was definitely, I'm going emotional here, because that was the highest highs and the lowest lows I have ever experienced were in the wake of that decision. And yet I was out on the road. I was alone. I mean, I met up with people along the way. I led some groups along the way. I mean, there was so much that happened in the years that followed, but it was such a significantly powerful time in my life to embark on such an adventure that's the one that, I mean, it was so hard. I wouldn't necessarily wish it on anyone, but oh my goodness, like, I would wish it on anyone, because it completely, shifted and changed and helped develop who I am now.
It's interesting you picked Patagonia, because that's where I went when all my immediate family has passed, and it's part of the reason why I travel so much. And Patagonia, to celebrate the first birthday of my mom's birthday without her, was Patagonia. So if you're looking for that inspirational point, it's that.
Patagonia meets you where you are. I mean, the mountains, the valleys, the reflections, it will rise up to exactly where you are and give you what you need. It's incredible.
All right, Garrett, I got to know, is yours going to be pre-kids? I am in awe of you and your wife, Jessica, doing what you're doing, traveling the world. I mean, country after country after country, 3 kids in tow.
I mean, not to downplay that feat, but I mean, we've got 3 incredible kids that are good at exploring, good at traveling. It's easier than it might sound, probably thanks to our kids. And so if I were to think of like the thing that comes to my mind, if we were to go way back, 3 hours ago, I was here in Vegas at this thing called Sky Combat Ace. If anyone wants to lose their lunch and just have their brain literally thrown to the back of their skull, it's called Sky Combat Ace, and it's like a fighter jet school experience. I did that this morning, and I'm telling you, I told my wife it like this, like, take the most insane roller coaster you've ever been on, and if that's a 6, then this is full 10. And at the end of this experience, they asked me if I wanted to experience like G's to the max, and I was like, let's go for it. And he's like, all right, I'll let you know when we're up to, I think he said 8 G's. 3 G's in, I was gone, just out. Don't remember it beyond that. Turns out I'm super weak around that stuff. And
maybe I should have gone.
Of like being able to smell and taste that your last adventure, I'm still spinning.
Yeah,
I'm
I
still
love
there.
that.
The vivid memory that you just shared with all of us. Thank you for that. All right, guys. So I want to talk about motivation, because it's a grind. I think all of us know, everybody aspires to travel, but when you travel for a living, or it's part of what you do for a living, there are many times it's a grind. I mean, Chris, you just talked about getting up at 1:30 this morning. You get no sympathy from a TV person who used to get up at 2:30 every morning.
Yep.
But, I got to ask you, especially, and I'll start with you, Chris, how do you stay motivated in balancing the fun part of it, the creative part, the travel itself part, with the not so fun, having to do the business side of it, and then also the other fun part of balancing it with family?
You mean the part that's not supposed to feel like work and supposed to feel like endless play?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the novelty around that, it wears off pretty fast. And I think at a certain point you realize in just any creative endeavor that requires a lot of you, a lot of your focus, attention, time, whatever. I mean, raising kids is a creative endeavor too, right? You're zapped emotionally, energetically. I find that, the only people that I've ever met that have been able to do this long term are those who've learned to really protect themselves in a way and find, I don't want to get like super esoteric here, but like find up their well of inspiration. I think about that. You go on a trip, you're just taking from the well and giving it to people, because you're giving it to this person or that person, or the time to this location or whatever. And then when you get back to wherever you call home base, or whatever kind of is your, equilibrium, you need to find a way to refill that. A lot of times for me, it doesn't look like photography at all. And in fact, I get a little scared when people, that's their identity and their whole life and their persona and everything. And I'm like, I need something else. So a lot of times it looks like finding time for what it is that refills me, because oftentimes travel, work, whatever, it does take. And it takes quite a bit, and it takes a toll, and you really want to be able to offer your very best. So I'm very protective of my time when I'm back at home. I'm very protective of, I feel fine giving 110, 120% to work when it requires it, because I know that when I'm back, I'm actually like, okay, I'm really going to learn to say no, take time for me, fill myself up, refill that creative battery, because you're going to have to pull from it later. So that has... Sadly, I didn't know that in my 20s. I'm almost 40, so it's taken me most of my 30s to learn, and I'm just starting to get there. And honestly, it's been so validating, because my best work is now what I know I can offer.
Nice. All right, Jackie. I got to ask you, because, you have an award-winning podcast. You are leading groups. You are planning for future group travel. You're running your business while you're taking groups out. How do you balance? What's a strategy that you use?
This is a great question. Personally, I had 10 years under my belt of doing all of this before I started my business. And so the travel foundation for me is the part that comes super intrinsically. it's just woven into my entire being. So that's the part that I'm, the home basing here and there, the traveling, like that's so me. I can't remove myself from it. But one of the things that I've learned, and this is maybe the advice I would give on it along the way, is that I haven't always had a home base during, I've often had, what do you call them? Storage
Living
units.
out of cars.
I've lived out of my truck. Yeah, all of that. So what that means is, if you don't take measures to create your home wherever you are, you will lose it. And there are things that are important that are even just small. If you regularly exercise, take vitamins, if you have a specific diet, you can't just leave that piece of you behind when your lifestyle is so all over the place. And so I find that for me, I've created my home in so many directions, and I'm not just talking about a place. I'm talking about even a playlist, something that just brings me back to, okay, this is me. I always have my running shoes with me. I can always go for a trail run, something that feels like me, that I can bring with me no matter where I am in the world, so that I can find that center, because that is what keeps me grounded amongst all of the everything.
All right, Garrett. So maybe it's not so much a strategy for you guys. I'm kind of curious as to, how do you guys set boundaries? You're filming your family's lives day in, day out. And how do you decide, okay, this, you've got to have some boundaries of, this is a no film zone.
I think the approach for me has always been the same, that I see myself as just a regular dad who wants to capture special memories of his kids. And so I'm not capturing I want to create this YouTube video. It's more so this is such a special moment. I want to remember it forever. Sorry if this is inappropriate, but something comes to my mind is me and my boys on a safari truck in the Serengeti, peeing off the side at nighttime. What a cool memory, remembering this forever, not putting it in the YouTube video, and that's fine, And so it's capture the memories and then see if I can document this into a lovely video that we want to remember forever. P.S. we'll share it online on social media is kind of the approach to that. And so with that in mind, we don't necessarily need to have too many boundaries established. It's kind of just go after the experience.
So it's kind of like a day-to-day but you're also being present too.
And it makes me happy, because a lot of times my kids will be up on a cliff about to jump into the lake and be like, Dad, pull out the camera, you're going to want to get this. And so they're a part of the documenting the experience as well.
Oh, so cool. Okay, Deanne, I got to ask you, because of course winning the Pulitzer Prize, how do you stay motivated after that? And for those that don't know, she was also coming from journalism, the television background. She was one of the first females on the sidelines in sports She's a full-out badass. How have you stayed for the long haul? How do you stay when you hit that pinnacle and you hit a high mark in your industry? How do you stay motivated to go to the next thing, to keep pushing the boundaries?
No, I am obsessed with story and with telling stories. And, I'm just always thinking about what's the next story I need to be working on. I just never stop thinking like that. I'm really excited to figure out what's the next thing, what's the next direction I'm going into. Let me just share a funny little story. You were just talking about the sidelines of a 49er game or an NFL game I might be covering. So early on, I was one of the few women along the sidelines of covering sports in the Bay Area, Niners, Raiders, as a staff photographer at the Chronicle. And one day I said, okay, I'm gonna get this picture. The one that you'd see in Sports Illustrated where the ball is just at the tip of the receiver's fingers. I said, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna nail this picture. So they're kneeling, I've got a monopod, I've got a long lens, and I see, okay, the quarterback throws the ball, and it's coming to John Taylor. And he's running directly at me, and I'm saying, okay, well, I just need to get this picture. And so next thing I know, he has completely filled the frame, and he's coming full speed. He's getting really close.
Ooh. Ow.
And I'm just thinking, oh no, this is where I die. So I go to put the lens down, and I remember all the other photographers would always say to me, if a player's running at you, just get low and they'll jump over you. But natural instinct, you try to get up. You just want to get out of the way. So I'm about halfway up, I'm, probably about like this, and all of a sudden he's right there. And he put his arms under mine, lifted me up, and carried me with him all the way to the stands.
Please say somebody got a picture of that happening.
Yeah, there is some video actually.
Was that the one that made Sports Illustrated?
No,
amazing.
and I didn't get that picture either.
All right, so let's talk about gear. So I will say for me, on any trip, does not matter if I'm going to climb a mountain or sit on a beach, there are two pieces that are always in, and I'm almost exclusively carry-on traveler. Two things I always have on every trip. One is a Matador packable backpack. The other is a Merrell puffy jacket. It doesn't matter if I'm going to the beach. The puffy jacket's going. It will be worn. It will be worn. So Jackie, what's one or two pieces of gear that goes on you with every trip besides phone and camera? Can't say those.
I think we should not say battery either because we all have those. I have a Patagonia fleece, one of those like performance hoodie fleeces that is my turquoise, which I love to wear. It's like my brand color. And I realized somewhere along the line that I never leave home without that thing. It is like the one thing, because we get this question a lot, and I always think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely my Anchor battery. 'Cause that's why I said we can't play that game because that's like a given now. But no, the Patagonia fleece in turquoise, it's my thing. It's like my calling card in the woods, like turquoise, there's Jackie.
All right, Garrett, traveling with the family, what's something that's a must-go on every trip?
You know what it is? For us, it's our dive masks. And I joke with my wife that we're packing up for an adventure, and she's like, we won't need those. And I'm like, why are we going somewhere where we wouldn't need our dive masks? Like, it's not even worth it for me then. And but I'll tell you when it came in handy is we were in the island nation of Mauritius and had all the full family's masks in my backpack, and we were going surfing. So not diving, we were just going surfing. And then this local instructor gets a phone call, and he's like, hey guys, I hate to do this to your surf trip, but there's about 40 sperm whales sleeping like 20 miles out. Like if we head there now, we might be able to see them. And I was like, let's go. And so we didn't have fins. We had swimsuits, but thank goodness we had these dive masks because when we came across these sperm whales and got in, like life-changing experience thanks to us having dive masks.
I kind of thought you might say snacks.
Oh yeah, kids should use that too.
Yeah.
If it was my wife up here, she would say snacks for the kids.
Yeah.
My bad.
All right, you two, Deanne and Chris, I got to ask you, as photographers, what's must-go piece besides the actual camera and the lens?
Well, one thing I always have in my bag, noise cancellation headphones.
You're kidding me. That's what I was going to say. I swear to God. I'm not even kidding you. I was going to say, they're on me right now. I never leave home without them. I've always got these on me. Yeah, that's hilarious. You said that. I swear to God, that's amazing.
That says a lot. Then,
yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's
that is.
Yeah, well, I feel like I get pretty overstimulated a lot of times. Like if I'm walking in New York City, you know, hour 3, hour 4, I'm like, I got to tune out. I can't handle this. It's a little bit much for me. And so I think that more from a storytelling perspective, if I want to, sorry, I totally stole what you were going to say. It took us over, but I'm going to get back to you, I promise. I really have to like tune out the noise to write my thoughts around a trip or an experience. And that's what, you know, gets put into books, and that's what gets put into like an Instagram caption or whatever. It's just, if I want to tell something meaningful, I have to write notes down, and I really need to tune out. So I listen to a lot of just like, no vocals kind of thing, just music, just something to chill me out, to tone me down a little bit, and that's really helpful. I find that to be I would love to know why you have it also. Like, what's your reason?
You know, it mainly for on planes.
Yeah.
You know, it makes my flight so much easier, and I feel so much more calm.
Yeah.
And I have an enjoyable flight. I actually like to fly.
Yeah.
And it's because of those headphones.
Totally.
Because then it's like I get into my own little world, my own little cocoon, and I can just focus on what I want to do, read a book or listen to music, watch a movie, and it's like I'm in my own little world. So
it is kind of a nice thing too, because like at home, it's not like I want to put in my noise canceling headphones and walk around, but it's this time where I get to like create my own little world. You know? Yeah, I love that.
I love the flight because that's like, don't be a chatty Cathy and sit next to me. Don't. That's
Same.
the only time. I mean, I'll talk to the whole world.
It's a way of letting people know, like, hey, I'm on my own world. Okay, thank you. Yeah, bye.
I'm following y'all's lead.
Oh, it's so true. You know, I got on an airplane once, and I saw Bruce Springsteen, and he got on, you know, first class, and I'm a Springsteen fan. And I said, oh, I really want to talk to him. And it was like the second I made eye contact with him, I saw, oh, yeah, he's got his noise cancellation headphones on. I'm not going to bother him.
Did you make eye contact, smile, and move on?
Oh, yeah, of course I did.
And anybody else had a Springsteen encounter?
The other thing I was going to say that, in addition to the noise cancellation headphones, is a think tank bag, and a little self-serving, right? But you know, I always try to figure out what's the right bag that I need for each assignment I'm going on. And, you know, like I was mentioning to Chris earlier that, you know, we think about that as a company as there's the bag that gets all of your equipment somewhere, whether it's overhead on an airplane or, you know, do I want it on wheels? Is it a backpack? And then when I get to my shoot, what am I going to shoot out of? You know, like do we...
Totally different, yeah.
Yeah, shoulder bag, hip pack or something. So I was figuring out which think tank bag's coming with me on a trip.
All right, so let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about impact and changes that you guys have seen in the past 5 to 10 years in your different disciplines or just different travel disciplines. And Garrett, I kind of will start with you guys because I'm curious if you guys have noticed in your business over the past 10 years, have you noticed more people traveling with their families for the educational value that traveling to other cultures, other places provides?
For sure. I think that might be one of the most rewarding parts of doing what we do is a lot of people will go to a far off place together with their family and then send us their photos or their videos and write us up a story of like how they were inspired and then how it impacted their family. And that to us means everything because the impact it had on our family to see other families then inspired and going through that same thing, especially like all kids have a special place in my mind of like, if they can learn about our planet and if they can learn about wildlife, then they're gonna take care of it because if you don't know about it, like you're less likely to care about it. And so that's what these families are doing. They're exposing their kids to different cultures, wildlife, all the above. And I truly do believe the world's in a better place from it.
And your 3 million followers would say thank you for what you guys are doing because you're inspiring people to go and do that and to really teach that next generation. So Jackie, I want to find out the impact that you see taking people on adventure tours all around the world, from Chile to Norway to everywhere in between. Are you seeing firsthand this surge of especially the female solo traveler that's getting out there and saying, I want to go see the world, and going and doing it, but maybe not quite ready to go on their own, can go and do it in a adventure travel group setting?
100,000%. Like, yeah, I actually do. Can't imagine why. I attract a lot of solo female travelers. But it's really cool to be able to facilitate a group setting for someone who says, I'm ready to do this, but I'm not ready to do it by myself quite yet. I mean, even when I started forever ago, I started with a study abroad program. So I had my hand held as well. The structure was built for me, and from there I could go and explore and see what was out there for me. And so in a similar way, I'm creating that with my groups now, and in saying, hey, let's go do this together. We can accomplish this together, in community. There's friends built in. You're not alone. You're going to be safe. You're going to, we have people. Everybody's vetted, and I love to guarantee that, like, this is kind of a different side of it all, but like, this is the most fun you're ever gonna have in Patagonia. Like, that's how I feel about my trips. So, for example, I mean, they're just so much fun. I love getting people in because they're hard. They're not for everybody, really. Like, we go on hard hikes, we bike every day, like whatever it is, the adventure setting, it's not necessarily easy. And so these people, mostly women, they'll show up and leave feeling, I mean, you can see the difference from day 1 to day 10, and you can hear it in their voice, and you can see it in their happy tears, that they're accomplishing things and they're believing more in themselves than they ever had. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely see that. I absolutely see that in what I can facilitate. But that's something that I learned and that I want to just kind of recreate for other people, which is similar to what you were saying. Like, this is something we're kind of doing for me, for us, our family, whatever, and then sharing it. And how can we then set a stage for somebody else to come write their own story?
Usually, what are the size of your groups that you're doing this with?
14.
Amazing. And then knowing that they're like rigorous and not easy, not for everyone, do you purposely put up any sort of filter, like considering it and signing up, like, hey, just so you know, and try to like talk them out of it in a weird way?
I put the fear of God in them. No, I mean, I do put, like, it's definitely part of the trip documentation that there's a fitness requirement, and I call it a physical fitness requirement. Like, get in the mindset that you are getting in shape to go hiking in Patagonia. You're not gonna go hiking in Patagonia to get in shape. Like, you gotta be ready for this, because this is also the adventure mindset, is like being prepared before you get there so that you feel your best on the trail, and you're most available to be part of a good group dynamic when you have taken care of yourself, right?
Well,
I think I'm gonna go on a solo female adventure. Sounds amazing.
Thank you. You're welcome to join us.
Well, and I love that you have the fitness requirement. Somebody who is training right now to do Kilimanjaro in July, and I think all of us kind of stay in a fitness level. I mean, be ready for when that opportunity knocks to go diving, to go, shoot whatever NFL game, the Super Bowl, to go to the far-flung remote destinations around the world. So Chris, I'm going to go to you as somebody who does go to some of those extreme places that are most impacted by climate change, where it's a visible impact. The meteorologist in me, of course, has to ask you about, where are you seeing the biggest changes from climate change? Is that Iceland where you live? Is it somewhere else? I've seen it from Everest Base Camp to the Marshall Islands.
Yeah, absolutely, everywhere. I mean, there's not a location in the world where you can't see a difference. And Iceland is, in many ways, it's exacerbated, in some capacity, because over the course of the 20 years that I've been going there, I've seen significant changes, which is partially a big reason why I moved there, is because I wanted to share that with my kids. And I think that you articulated that really well, Garrett, was that, you want to, allow people to have these experiences in the hopes that they can, find joy and cultivate a relationship with those environments, because the only way they're ever going to care about them, vote for them, protect them, whatever, is if they have a personal relationship. You can talk about the importance of glaciers or whatever till your nose bleeds to people in rural China or Africa, but unless they get the chance to experience it in some way, it's going to be really hard. And I know that's a privileged thing. So if you have the privilege of allowing people to experience it, do it. I feel indebted to those landscapes. Like, I actually feel like I owe them something severe. And so I feel like the very best thing I can offer is that my kids will have a broader perspective of the world than I did growing up, because it took me until my mid-20s, almost early 30s, to really gain an appreciation, because I didn't travel until I was working with a camera. And so I think that that's been really critical for me. But if anything more so, it's a complicated narrative, right? Because a lot of times the places that are the most impacted, places like Iceland, Greenland, Alaska, it's these small communities where the promise of jobs comes in to kind of revive these small towns or fjords or wherever, and it's at the cost of the environment. So it's always this extractive industry versus this and that, which a lot of times the solution to that, or a solution, can be tourism, but that also comes with its own issues. So, we could have a whole panel about that discussion, but it's a complicated narrative, and it's something that I try to weave very carefully, because when you don't live in a place, you can't vote in a place. Like, you might live there, but you don't have citizenship. You want to use your voice as carefully as you can. You just want to urge people to experience it so that they form their own opinion, because at the end of the day, that's all we can really do.
And it is a delicate balance, yes, being very fortunate to travel all around the world, but it's heartbreaking to me being in somewhere like Zimbabwe when they are in midst of one of the worst droughts ever, or you go to the Marshall Islands that will likely be uninhabitable in the next 30 to 50 years because of changes. But I do want to focus too on the positive and a positive impact. And as you were talking about taking it forward and teaching the younger generation, Deanne, I know you do a lot to encourage young photographers coming up. And we had a conversation yesterday, and I loved the advice that you gave. Can you kind of share with us again the advice that you give the younger generations coming up as they start into, hopefully, creative fields?
I would say you have to be bold and fearless, because there's this thing that we want. There's this beacon that we're all going after, whether that's sharing our stories, just being out, experiencing the world, and kind of illuminating people about what we're seeing out there. And it's really easy to get distracted from that, and to get fearful about it for one reason or another. So I would say just have no fear, be bold, and go for what you want.
All right, so let's talk about the landscape of adventure travel. Jackie, have you seen changes in the past decade of what that idea of adventure travel, it used to be that you had to go, adventure travel was only going on a Nat Geo, full experience, way into the depths of the Amazon. Is it different now?
Definitely. I know that adventure travel is on the rise. I happen to be very deep within it, and so for me, I see it everywhere. I know that we still have a lot of work to do, because there are people who, they still, there's a lot bigger industries out there that will catch their attention first. And the reason I say that is because adventure travel really exists at the intersection of local cultures, like off the beaten path, and tourism. And so there are specific places that are kind of leading the charge for creating sustainable adventure travel, where they, for example, I'm going to just use Patagonia as an example, because that's the place that I spend the most time. There are endless opportunities within Patagonia to sell off land, to create jobs that are going to be temporary by setting up dams, like whatever it is. There have been incredible movements within Patagonia to educate locals, because that's what it comes down to, is education. Because in a small village, there are people who are going to be after a money grab. They want the jobs. They want the temporary things that are coming. And they have to be taught and trained that, hey, if we set up an adventure outfitter here and we invite people to raft these rivers and fish these rivers instead of setting up a dam that's going to destroy all of that, then we can create a sustainable income here that benefits everyone, including the planet. And so that's kind of the backbone of adventure travel. I think has a really strong element of sustainability. But I know we have a long way to go. But you do see it a lot more. And it's the backyards. It's the backyards that you're actually going through and meeting the people where that's the most impacted. When you travel anywhere, those people are the most impacted, And so when you can celebrate them and bring them into the picture, that's how we create something that's sustainable going forward. And it also helps with, the people who experience that then get to meet someone who's in that backyard, and they become, like both of you guys were saying, when you know someone, and you can have an investment in them, they become part of your story. Maybe you leave and then you hear about a disaster that's happening somewhere far away. Well, they're not just a number on the news anymore. You're like, oh, I'm going to check in with my friend in Chile and see how they're doing, and it becomes so much more personal. I really took that kind of far, but I hope I answered your question.
It was really well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you know what? Just to what you just said, I have a guide that I spent one day with in Iceland, and every time the volcano goes off, I'm like, hey, can you see it? And, within a couple of hours, I get some sort of, photo back. So it's so important to create those friendships that come from that one-on-one guide experience, or somebody that you met in a coffee shop. And Garrett, I kind of want to ask you, as far as when you guys engage with your community, are they concerned with over-tourism? Because look, the reality is you all have, 3 million followers on Instagram alone, and that's encouraging people to go maybe to some of these, like Tonga, areas, A, people may not know where on earth it is, and B, a place that you want to make sure stays as beautiful as it is right now. Do you feel a weight with that? Do you have your community interacting with you, saying, we're going for these alternative places besides some of the more popular Disneyland, Disney World type of vacations?
Yeah, I think there's a huge weight and responsibility to that. I think it starts with inspiring people of look, I know you go to Walt Disney World every single year, but you should consider some of these other experiences that are out there, and just getting it at least planted in people's minds. And then definitely huge responsibility on teaching people the right way to travel, the best way to travel. And a lot of that is not necessarily us, but certain destinations that have set themselves up in a way that is more sustainable. And we get to show our audience the good and the bad that the world has set up. One that comes to my mind is, I think the Galapagos has done an incredible job of setting it up, of realizing our asset is nature, is wildlife, and so we need to set up tourism in a way that will forever protect that and help build it. Otherwise, we're going to destroy our greatest asset. And so to be able to share that with our audience, I think goes a long ways. And then obviously it comes down to also us and our behavior. Getting to show our kids, hey, we're going to do a beach cleanup, and we are going to share that as part of our videos, saying, hey, when you go to a place, you are the guest, and you need to leave it better than when you found it.
Well said.
Yeah.
Can I chime in on something?
Absolutely.
Really quick and just steal a second. But I love this idea of adventure travel. I think what becomes really challenging is how do you define it, right? Because it is just such a random term that gets thrown around like authenticism, and it almost feels like greenwashing in a way where you're like, yeah, adventure travel. When I've often felt like it's important to define it for us personally. And all I can do is define it for myself. But if I was going to offer a little pearl of wisdom as to the world, according to Chris Burkard, which you can throw out with a grain of salt if you want, it's like a real adventurous experience. It has to ignite all the senses. It has to be something that when you come home, you feel like you smelt, tasted it, and you felt it, and it has to elicit some kind of emotional, vulnerable response. That's what I look for. That's my barrier of entry for a trip that I'm going to try to define as adventurous, right? I want to eat a food that I've never tried before. I want to meet a person I'm keeping in touch with. If I don't meet a local that I was willing to get their phone number or keep in touch with them or follow them on Instagram or whatever, what was the point of the trip? If I just, brought all of my, favorite things that I like to do and read and see and eat on the trip with me, I'm not pointing any fingers, but that's a sign that maybe we're not traveling in a way that's opening us up to new, vulnerable experiences that you hope change you a little bit. That's the goal, right? And I think there's a difference between just travel in general versus adventure travel. It doesn't have to be on foot, on backpack, on horseback, wherever. It can just be doing it in a way that ignites the senses. And to me, I have young kids. They are very much connected to things they can touch and feel and taste. And I'm only taking them to places where they can. I'm only taking them to somewhere where, like, we walk up to that waterfall, and if there's a guardrail where they can't, they can't feel the mist, like, that's pointless. I'm not going to do that. I want to go somewhere where they can get their hands dirty. And I think that as adults, we need to remember that that's the point. That's the goal, too. So I look at it, and I try to filter it through that perspective.
But then how do you balance? Because it's a catch-22. You're going into these phenomenal landscapes and experiences. You're showing it on social media. And the onslaught of people that could potentially come from your one picture or video, your films and things that you do. How do you balance that part of it?
There's no real balance. The beauty is that anywhere off the beaten path, people are not going to be as willing to go. The more effort you put in, the less likely they are. And if they are willing, excellent. The beauty is that there are places out there that are just waiting for you to come. The East Fjords of Iceland, the West Fjords of Iceland, these remote corners of the world where the farm didn't do so well, so the company, the old man and the old woman, they sold the farm and built Airbnbs with the hope of tourism, because that's the promise of a sustainable future for them. It's not overfishing. It's not building a dam. It's not, wind energy. It's actually leaning into tourism in a way that is sustainable. And what happens is most of the time people go to those places and they realize, oh, that place we booked is 5 hours drive. I don't want to do that. And so they cancel it. And that's the problem, is that then what we do is we base our experiences upon what we've seen others do. And we have this list of expectations. Oh, I got to see that waterfall, and I got to see that, and I got to see that. And then we write these beautiful captions like, went down an empty road and found this thing, when really that's what we used to do. We actually used to go down an empty road because we didn't have a map and we didn't have a GPS, and there was a sense of exploration. And that exploration can simply be driving in a car down a place that you don't know where it ends. I love that feeling. I love that, like pointing at a little town or a little restaurant on a map and be like, let's go there, because we don't know what it's like, because we've never seen it before. It could be total dog crap. It could be excellent. It could be the best lobster soup we've ever had. But you know what? As a family, we love this idea of like, let's have it be something that we don't know where we're going to sleep tonight. Let's figure it out when we get there. It might be terrible. It might be a motel, whatever, or it might be a cool Airbnb. I think that adventure can encompass a lot of things, and it doesn't always have to be far-flung. And to be honest, it also doesn't have to be shared. I don't share 99% of what I do. I mean, people are mostly just seeing the tip of the iceberg, and I usually try to be conscientious that what I'm sharing is a local vendor or a place where people could spend money and it could go back into the local community, because that's super important.
I like that perspective of if you've gone to a faraway place and somebody's putting the work in to get there, let them enjoy and share.
They appreciate it. I'll say one more thing too. Like, the most open-hearted experience I've ever had is when I do arrive somewhere under human power. You ride a bike, you hike, you walk, you're in the Alps and you walk up to some little like chalet where they're serving some like wine and cheese. Like, people, their hearts open to you. Mm-hmm. I've seen closed signs turn around when you arrive somewhere on a bike or in a car and you're soaking wet and it's raining. I love that feeling. Like, the warmth people can give you is so precious.
And you share it too.
Totally.
You totally share it. And Garrett, you were about to say something. I could see the...
you can hear it in his voice. Definitely adventure travel doesn't just change who you are, but it does. It changes the way that you travel. Because once you go off the beaten path one time, you're like, that was better. Yeah. It was harder, it was less convenient, but it was better and then afterwards, people want to share that story of the adventure they went on and what was unexpected. How often does someone come back and be like, my cruise was so convenient? Like, that's not exciting.
Convenience
it's
is
always
kind of
the unexpected adventures that like really change you and change the way you want to forever travel.
100%.
No, it kind of reminds me of this quote. It's a Yogi Berra quote. And isn't it, when you come to a fork in the road, take it? how the quote goes. To me, that's kind of adventure travel.
That's totally it. Can I add something too? I love what you said about the 5 senses of adventure, and I think I would add to that like, when you're on an adventure, you don't necessarily know the outcome. This is what adventure travel is. This is why those empty roads, unmarked restaurants, whatever, are the story in the end, because you're exploring. And so part of that balance too is if we're if we're setting the example, we are off the beaten path, right? And where we end up is our story. But we are setting the example of saying, hey, like this is what happens when you set out and you don't necessarily bring the map with you. You don't have the routine set, you know, and then encourage others to go figure out what theirs is, because their path is going to lead them down a different road. Sometimes they're afraid of what that is, but if we can show them like, hey, this is how it's ending up for us, what is it going to be for you?
And I think too, adventure travel is not just going, it's as wonderful as it is to go and explore so many different countries. We also have an amazing country here.
Totally.
And always explore your backyard and explore what's in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state. As someone who is working her way to all 433 National Park Service sites, by the way, 243, including 45 national parks. We have so many unique areas that you can do that. And going down that dirt road, I feel like all of us are the type of people that if we have an option to go on a highway or a dirt road, we're all taking the dirt road, aren't we? All right, so I'm going to leave on this last question for each of you. Deanne, where in the world have you not gone, that you haven't gone, that you want to go?
Oh, my goodness. It's my current obsession, as crazy as it sounds, is more road tripping in America.
Nice.
I just feel like I'm at this point where I just want to kind of understand our country a little bit better. And there's something that's really drawing me to just getting out on the road and kind of understanding what's going on in our country.
Well, Route 66, big celebration next year, so I think you should go drive the Mother Road.
You know what? It's calling to me.
Let me know when you find out what's going on with our country. When you find like on that road trip, call me.
Write that story.
I would say, to answer your question, maybe as high on my list, I've never been. I've had like multiple projects that just didn't pan out
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I bet. And I really love places with a lot of vertical relief. Like to me, the recipe for a good image is like place where the mountains meet the ocean or dunes meet the sea. And I love that contrast of landscapes. And so a lot of the places that I've dreamt of, still going, it's more of a challenge because of the access or permission, or it's this scientifically owned island or, whatever. But I feel genuinely like I'm open to anything. Like I don't really have like this singular destination. I've been lucky to travel to a few of the ones that were high on my bucket list. And if anything, I do appreciate what you said earlier about like exploring your own backyard. It's the hardest thing to do. It is the hardest in our own town. It's like we go to the same coffee shop, the same restaurant, and it's harder to facilitate new experiences. And it doesn't have to be exploration. It can just be our habits, our habitualness to doing the same thing. So I look forward to like what you said, like exploring our own backyard, road tripping in the States. For me, road tripping in Iceland is still very much a huge part of what I love. Being in those landscapes that really surprise me, that shock me, that leave me with a little bit of like a breathless feeling. That's a good sign for sure.
All right, Jackie, where do you want to go?
Okay, mine's a little more narrowed. I'm going to Norway, and I haven't been there yet.
Jealous. Party of one over here.
And I don't know what it's just been on the top of my bucket list for a while, and it's time. I have a group trip going there in May. We're going to go to the Western Fjords, get totally off the beaten path. We're going wild camping on remote islands. Like, it's going to be good, and I cannot wait. I'm drawn to places with big mountains and really vast, incredible landscapes that often have glaciers in them, and so this is my current one.
You're going to love it.
I'm so excited.
Oh my God.
So Garrett, what's on your bucket list?
Mine is a place that was a trip that was planned and then canceled in 2020. And I served a church mission in Russia and have been dying to take my family there. And I was so heartbroken when it didn't happen. So someday I really want to take them to Russia, and I really want to share those videos and those stories, because I think anytime somebody tries to have like a blanket stereotype or story over an entire people, it's automatically wrong. And I know the Russian people, and I have so much love for them, and so I want to share the love that is those people with as many around the world as possible.
That's awesome.
All right, so I've asked you guys a lot of questions. Now it's time for all of you that might have questions. We're going to open up the floor. And if you have a question for any or all of our panel, fire away.
And I think we have time for one or two questions, and then we're going to launch into the awards and giveaway. Hi there.
Hello, my name is Elaine. I was just wondering, what is like a personal little tidbit or like something quirky about you guys that you guys don't share on social that might be like, really interesting, or maybe like a pet peeve? Would love to learn a little quirky tip from all of you guys.
Okay, I've got a quirky one. I don't know if quirky is the right term, but early on I had to get over my fear of heights. And one of my earliest assignments, I had to get to the top tower of the Golden Gate Bridge. So yeah, picture the tower, the Golden Gate Bridge. I had to get to the top. So very early in my career, I had to get over my fear of heights.
I hate clowns.
I'm with you.
I'm just not like a clown guy, I mean, I can watch the movie It because I can get down with like evil clowns because that's kind of how I picture them. But like clowns that are pretending to be nice that aren't, I don't like that. So yeah.
I started playing ice hockey like 5 years ago as an adult, learned everything. And I have started in the States bringing my hockey gear with me and playing pickup games in other places, like as I'm on my travels. And it's been so much fun for me. And I really want to do an international ice hockey tournament.
That's awesome.
A weird quirk about me nobody really knows is I am a clown guy.
Shut up.
I'm just kidding.
You're like, I'm a clown. I'm an actual clown.
I am a clown. No. I'm not a freak. Okay. This one helps me in the world of travel. So I have narcolepsy, and it was a really big problem. Like growing up, caused all sorts of issues. But now, as I've started to like learn how to control and harness it, it's beautiful for travel. When I'm on a flight and want to fall asleep, I can trigger and right away. So it's a helpful quirk.
It's a superpower.
It is.
It's like literally a superpower. Yeah.
So my quirkiness that I do when I travel, I actually do it for two reasons. But the main reason is I get blowouts. I go into salons and get blowouts around the world.
Careful with family travel. Blowout means something different.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. Hair blowouts. Hair blowouts.
Bucketlist, good definition.
Yeah. Look, I got the best $10 hair wash and blowout in Cusco right before I went and trekked to Machu Picchu that I've ever had. But I do it because, I have very crazy curly hair. And the other, and it saves me space because I don't have to take as much hair stuff with me in my suitcase. And what it turned into was that I love going and experiencing real life in other countries.
Yeah.
And you get that in a salon.
Yep.
I think we have time for one more quick question. I see a hand over here. Coming to you.
I am a clown.
So mine is sort of more business related. All of you are obviously in the public eye quite a bit. And I find it hard to imagine that at somewhere along the way you haven't gotten some kind of criticism like, oh, why are you encouraging people to go to this place that's out of the beaten path and now all of a sudden it's going to be overrun with people, or maybe like, aren't your kids young to do that, or whatever it might be. So I was curious, how do you, kind of on an individual level, how do you deal with criticism coming from the public? I mean, do you address it head on? Or are you like, ugh, whatever? I mean, I'm just, kind of curious about that when you're in the public eye.
I'll go first, since a television person for over 30 years. What I learned a long time ago was that it's a lot harder for somebody to send the nice email. It takes more time, and to value those. And with the negative comments, what people don't realize is that those hurt. Those hurt. I mean, we're human. They're hurt. But you have to put the value on the positive ones, not the negative ones. And in a sense, you don't want to say just brush it off, but you kind of have to have your thicker skin and brush it off some and really value the positive ones.
I'll chime in. Yeah, this is a great question, actually. I think knowing what you're talking about is important. If you're going to speak up about an environmental issue, if you're going to advocate for something, if you're going to talk about tourism, or you're going to whatever, like, make sure you know what you're talking about. I mean, for me, I think the one thing I'd love to say is just like, I want to give people permission for whatever this means to them. You don't have to worry about everything happening in the world, because it was only in the last 10 years that we've even been able to know what was happening. That's not natural. There's nothing natural about picking up your phone and being witness to every atrocity happening globally. So just because somebody else thinks that their issue they're really concerned with needs to become your issue that now you're concerned with, it's not correct. That's not how human beings work. What we do is we're meant to activate in our local communities, because back in the day, when we were still trying to, make fire with sticks, that's all we knew about. And slowly but surely, we were more aware of the world, and it's made us better people, absolutely. But I think there's something to be said about acting first in your local community, being aware of the issues there, and then kind of speaking out beyond that and learning what the issue is. And now I'm specifically talking about this from more of like a environmental or a tourism perspective, because there are so many perspectives. Negativity can come from any which direction. It usually says more about the person than it does about you. And so, yes, growing a thicker skin is great, but I would also, urge that we need to realize that we can't fix the world's issues. I would rather, and I've tried to hone in on the one thing I think I can make a difference in. For me, it's been advocating for Iceland's glacial river system and protecting its Atlantic salmon. Why? Because I'm invested. Because I've spent 7 years documenting them. Because I know a lot. Because I've spoken on behalf of the government. Because. And so that's an issue I'm very well versed in. And I'll be happy to go toe-to-toe with somebody. But other subjects that I'm not educated on, I'm okay saying, I don't know much about that. And to be honest, I'm not going to learn much about that. Not because it doesn't interest me, I don't have the bandwidth to really give that what it deserves. Some of the issues in the world, they deserve a lot more time than any of us have. So we usually tend to focus on what we can, educate ourselves. When I travel somewhere, I want to learn about the issues they're facing, because if I'm going to talk about it, I want to make sure that I'm educated enough to say something, right?
I love that. Well said, because you basically just brought in the topic of expertise. We're experts in something, there's a reason for that. I love that. I will say the Man in the Arena speech has gotten me through a lot of things.
Yes.
And if you haven't read it, you have to, The Man in the Arena, because we are in the arena, and the people on the sidelines, their opinions don't get to matter. When you have a passion and a purpose, and this is going to come back to the why, come back to each of our whys in the end, is why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we in this position? Why am I holding this mic? Why has this opportunity been given to me? What is the responsibility I'm going to show up with and do something with? And so I think we have to focus on, that part of it too, is I know why I'm here. I know what I'm doing. And sometimes you just have to block out the comments, the negativity. It's really hard. It's really hard. That's why we like the Man in the Arena speech. But it comes back to the why and the expertise, and just owning that and understanding that we can't be experts in everything, but there are those things that we know, and we're going to stand up for that.
I think your question actually highlights the importance of travel even more, because according to the internet, the world is in a terrible place. According to the internet, I'm a terrible dad. The internet loves drama. The internet feeds off hate. And then I go and I travel, and I always get to come back and tell my family and my friends, the world is in a good place, full of good people, and I feel safe in countries that the internet thinks is dangerous. And so that has been such an eye-opening thing for me, is to hear the internet shouting one thing and then get to see something very different with my own eyes and share that with my family, that the world is a good place.
Amen.
What a perfect way to wrap up this incredible session. So thank you to our adventure panel. Please give a warm round of applause. Jennifer Broome, Deanne Fitzmaurice, Chris Burkard, Jackie Nourse, Garrett G. Thank you.